Sarah stood before the court, documents in hand. When her lawyer revealed a hidden clause no one had noticed, Rachel's face went pale. The courtroom froze, sensing something big was coming. What happened next would change everything. But let's start from the beginning. Sarah Miller had always found comfort in the simplicity of her small suburban home. Tucked away in Oakwood Hills, her backyard was her haven, a quiet retreat where she could unwind, plant flowers, and spend time with her loyal dog, Rocky. That serenity, however, was abruptly destroyed one evening when she found a notice under her door from the Homeowners Association, HOA, led by the uncompromising Rachel Stevens. The letter was brief, its words cold and direct. Violation of HOA rules. Yard must remain untouched. No personal projects permitted. No explanation, no prior warning. Just a growing list of fines that threatened to escalate with every passing day she failed to comply. Sarah was left in shock. She had lived in Oakwood Hills for years, always following the rules, never once causing trouble. The sudden restriction made no sense, and worse, no one had mentioned any changes to the HOA guidelines. It felt like an attack, one that Sarah had no chance to prevent. Frustration simmered within her as she stared at the letter. Her garden, her peaceful retreat, now forbidden. Sarah couldn't fathom why they would target her like this. She was a model neighbor, always polite and respectful of the community's needs. Yet the HOA had drawn its line in the sand. Her yard was now off limits, and she had no idea how to fight back. As Sarah grappled with the escalating fines and the crushing weight of the HOA's power, a sense of helplessness crept over her. How could this be happening? The injustice of it gnawed at her, but little did she know she was on the verge of uncovering a deeper conspiracy, one that would alter everything she thought she knew about the neighborhood she called home. The feeling of being trapped was only the beginning. What Sarah didn't realize yet was that this battle over her yard would soon escalate into something far more sinister. As the weeks dragged on, Sarah's frustration grew with each passing day. The HOA, led by Rachel Stevens, showed no signs of relenting. Every morning, Sarah found yet another notice slipped under her door, another fine, another demand to comply with their arbitrary rules. The amount piled up quickly, each letter a stark reminder that her peaceful life had been turned upside down. Desperate, Sarah attempted to reach out to the HOA board, requesting a meeting to discuss the situation. But her efforts were met with silence. No response. When she finally caught Rachel in person, the encounter left her even more disillusioned. Rachel's cold, dismissive smile only made the tension more palpable. "Rules are rules," she would say, her tone dripping with indifference as she handed over yet another violation notice. But Sarah wasn't about to back down. If the HOA thought she would simply roll over, they had another thing coming. Late into the night, she pored over the HOA's bylaws, poring over dense legal documents, searching for anything that could turn the tables. She scoured online forums, reading stories of others who had fought back against unreasonable HOA restrictions. It was exhausting, but she was determined to find a way out. And then, one night, as her eyes scanned through yet another paragraph of jargon, she found it. A clause, buried deep within the HOA's own regulations, hidden from view. It was a simple section on property rights. It stated that homeowners had the legal right to challenge the HOA's decisions in court if those decisions were in violation of state laws regarding property rights. A wave of realization hit her hard. She wasn't powerless. She didn't have to bow to their demands. The HOA had overstepped its bounds, and she had the legal means to fight back. It was as if a switch flipped inside her. Her frustration turned to focus. The anger that had been building in her for weeks now transformed into an unyielding determination. This was no longer just about her yard. It was about her rights, her freedom, and her dignity. Rachel Stevens had made a dangerous mistake by underestimating Sarah. She would soon find out that Sarah Miller wasn't someone to be pushed around. Sarah knew that she couldn't take on the HOA alone, not if she wanted to win. So, she hired Emily Carter, a tenacious lawyer with a sharp mind and a track record of successfully challenging HOA regulations. Emily had dealt with cases like Sarah's before, and she wasted no time in crafting a legal strategy. When Sarah explained the loophole she had uncovered, Emily was impressed. "This is good. We can make a case here," Emily said, a hint of excitement in her voice. For the first time in weeks, Sarah felt a spark of hope. She wasn't alone in this fight anymore. They were going to do everything they could to win. The court date was set, and the countdown to the trial was filled with a mix of nervous anticipation and quiet determination. Sarah couldn't help but feel the weight of it all. This was no longer just about her backyard. It was about standing up for her rights, her home, and everyone else in the neighborhood who had been intimidated by the HOA's overreach. Her resolve hardened. This was her chance to show Rachel Stevens and the entire HOA that she wasn't someone to be pushed around. On the day of the trial, the tension in the courtroom was palpable. The neighborhood had turned out in droves to watch, whispers and murmurs filling the air. Rachel Stevens, wearing her usual cold, calculating expression, sat confidently at the opposing table. But Sarah wasn't intimidated. She stood tall beside Emily, ready for the battle. Rachel's argument was predictable. She tried to paint Sarah as a troublemaker, someone who had knowingly violated HOA rules. She spoke in a calm, authoritative tone, hoping to make Sarah appear reckless. But Emily, armed with the clause Sarah had uncovered, ripped that argument apart with precision. The hidden clause, one that Rachel's team had clearly missed, invalidated the HOA's claim entirely. As the trial went on, Sarah began to feel a growing sense of justice. With every argument Emily presented, she knew the law was on their side. But it was more than that. There was something deeply satisfying about standing up to the very system that had been bullying her and the other residents for so long. The fight wasn't just about her yard anymore. It was about sending a message. No one should have to live in fear of the HOA's unchecked power. The judge's decision was a triumph. Sarah had won. The HOA had violated her rights, and every fine they'd imposed was declared invalid. As the judge delivered the verdict, Rachel Stevens' face turned a deep shade of disbelief. The confident, smug expression she had worn throughout the trial crumbled in an instant. Sarah felt a surge of satisfaction as she watched Rachel's certainty dissolve. But the victory didn't end there. The judge made another ruling that sent a powerful message. Not only were the fines voided, but the HOA was also ordered to cover Sarah's legal fees, an amount that far exceeded what they had tried to punish her with. It was a blow that was more than just financial. It was a symbolic defeat for the HOA's overreach. Sarah couldn't help but wonder how Rachel would explain this to the other homeowners, knowing that her grip on the neighborhood had been shattered. Walking out of the courtroom, Sarah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She hadn't just won a legal battle, she'd reclaimed her freedom. The HOA no longer had control over her property. The victory was bittersweet, but it was sweet nonetheless. Justice had been served.